Okay, hello everyone. Welcome. Our virtual room is filling. My name is Wes Lipschultz. I'll be your host today for this information session related to the Master of Data Science at the University of Pittsburgh. I'm just going to give a second to get started. I'm going to wait for the room to fill. We're going to look here and see amongst the attendees if there's anyone that should be added as a panelist that's showing up in the audience. I'm just doing a quick scroll here. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining on what is in many places in the US a very cold day. I know that there can be people around the world here as well. So hopefully wherever you're coming in from, it's a warmer, more sunny place than a lot of the places in the US at the moment. But we'll get started momentarily. I think I still see this climbing. Close to 100 participants. Not bad, not bad. All right, it looks like the room has stabilized. And I'm sharing my screen, so you should be seeing the intro slide to the presentation that I'm giving today. This is hosted by the University of Pittsburgh's School of Computing and Information. And this session is for students who may be interested in the Master of Data Science in the School of Computing and Information. And this will be an hour long with a little bit of time for questions. So let's see, I'll get started here now. Let me start by introducing myself. I mentioned my name a minute ago as people were still joining. My name is Wes Lipschultz, and my role within the School of Computing and Information at the University of Pittsburgh is that I'm the Senior Director of Student and Academic Affairs. So I have a fairly central role that's student facing in the school, but more specifically, as it pertains to this degree that you're interested in, the MDS degree, I'm the Student Success Lead. So I'm here with my colleague Maria, who is another student success coordinator here. We're sort of the central kind of advising piece of the program. And in terms of my street cred to be dealing with students as an advisor or an administrative capacity, I've had about 29 years in higher education. My background's in advising, recruitment, student success, experiential learning, admissions, and more. My graduate background's in social psychology and instructional systems. And personally, you'll see in there, I'm married to Christine there, and then my daughter Claire is with me, and then my doggy daughter Rosie is also right there. Great family members. And then in terms of hobbies, I'm really into music, both listening to, but I also play piano, harmonica, and ukulele. I love hiking and convertibling because I have a convertible, and biking, both the pedal kind and the motor kind. So with that in mind, but enough about me and enough about the Pitt folks. Let's ask a little bit about you. So here we have, when was the last time you were in a classroom? Let's see how this fills up. I'm just curious to see what kind of a population we've got here. We're going to take a sip of coffee while we see the stats roll in. And there's a method to our madness. So I'm not sure if you're seeing this. I think once the stats are in, then my colleague Jane is probably going to post the results. I'm seeing them now, so hopefully others are seeing them as well. Basically, it looks like there are quite a few people that have been out of school for a while, some people that have just been out of school, and various and sundry other levels of time between you and the last time you attended university. That is normal. And this is one of the things we wanted to sort of get at by asking this poll, is that the cohorts of students who enter this program come from all over. Right. Some people are brand new. They just got an undergrad degree and they're ready to do a master's, but maybe they have a job and they're working and they want to do this on the side. Others might have been in the work world for a while, just a couple of years. I'm like, nah, maybe I want to shift my focus a little bit. So that's why they're interested in this. Others might be career changers. They've had a long run of something and they're like, well, I want to try something new. That's also okay. And then others might just be doing this out of an intellectual interest. Sometimes people come back after they've had a long career. They might be close to retirement or retired and they just want to learn. All of that is okay. And all of that is welcome in this program. So you can sort of see that here, that it's not an even split, but there's quite a few people in each one of those categories. All right, the greatest being people who've been out of school for a good bit, but that's totally fine and totally normal. Just wanted to give you a sense of that. Okay. Now, here's another question. We're still trying to get to know you. It would be, what are you hoping to learn here today? Like, why did you come to the information session? We have some things online, so, but we obviously can go in deeper depths to this. So let's see what you're interested in. Okay, more than about 2/3 of the participants have completed. Let's see how it goes. I'll give it a minute more. Okay. Let me share the results here. Oh, they're shared. All right. So here you can see some people are interested in learning more about what data science is. Some others are interested in what careers can you do with that? What about the cost in terms of both time and money? And then how do you get in? What's the application process? We'll cover pretty much all of that at some level in this presentation. And then there's somebody else who said, a couple people that actually said, I have a different question to ask. There'll be time at the end for Q&A, and we'll try to answer as many questions as you can in the allotted time that we have. All right, so with that in mind, what we're going to cover is a bit about the MDS program, what it is, what it's all about, steps to enroll in the program, and enrollment core to that is the enrolling in what we call the PBA, which is the performance-based admission class, which is data-centric computing. It's a single class. That's one of the things you need to take. So we'll cover that for a bit. And then once you do that, how long does it take to finish the degree? We'll cover that. And then we'll have a little bit of time at the end for question and answers. Okay, so first, a bit about the program, the Master of Data Science. This is actually designed for people who are coming back to school, so returning adults, working professionals who want to upskill and reskill. So it's designed to be pragmatic. It's designed for people who have other things in their lives, like families and work and other commitments. It's also designed to be something that's life changing. And by that, I mean, we don't expect you to have prerequisites or a background in this. Science, technology, engineering, and math background is required. All backgrounds are welcome, provided that you have an undergrad degree. That's the one commonality. You need to have completed a 4-year bachelor's degree or its equivalent. It's also a flexible program. It's online. There's no lecture that you have to attend at a set time. So it's 100% online, and it's asynchronous. So it's self-paced. But let me give you a caveat to that. It still is an accredited master's, a real University of Pitt master's that involves quite a bit of work. Master's degrees take quite a lot of time and study and focus. And it's not like freeform. You can't just take as long as you want. It's still bound by a semester. The time in the fall semester or the spring semester or the summer semester for on-campus classes, that's the same amount of time that you have to complete a given class. It's a term-by-term program. So even though you have whatever time you want within that time frame, like 2 a.m. or 4 p.m. on a Sunday or a Tuesday, that's fine, but you still have to pace yourself and you're still going to have to do regular progress. And the faculty who have provided these classes, these are our core faculty, our tenured faculty. The ones who built these classes are some of our most seasoned faculty in the school. And the classes are delivered by instructors and faculty in the school. So these are, again, real faculty, real instructors. These are ones who teach on campus. They're some of our research-bearing faculty. They're some of our professors of practice, but they are our seasoned faculty who teach these and have built these. Now, let me ask you another question. So we've given you a little bit about the program. Let's learn a little bit more about you. What's your context? So we know what you want to learn about, but what have you been doing? What have you been up to? What are you working in? Are you sort of focusing on family and parenting or other responsibilities? Are you in a career that's in tech, or is it in business or human services or other areas? So we're just getting a sense of what the folks are who take this degree. And for what it's worth, it's okay to be from all walks of life. That's actually kind of common in this program because it doesn't have a prerequisite background. But that being said, it's also deep enough that people who may have a tech background, this might be different than the tech background you've had. So you might have a stats degree or a biology degree or something like that. But understanding data and data analysis is a different flavor of STEM. So it would still be something new to you and valuable in building skills and upskilling. Okay, so in this particular session, there's a lot of people in this that already have a STEM background. Now, that's not always the case. We typically have a pretty even split, but I think it is definitely relevant to both the STEM and the non-STEM folks who are here. So I think that's actually totally normal. We have a varied cohort. And then last but not least, this is my last question for this particular session, I promise. What are you wanting to get out of this degree? Why are you planning to pursue this? Some people think, well, a master's helps with my salary. I want to change areas of focus professionally. I'm looking for a promotion. My employer might like that. Or, well, my employer will pay regardless of what else happens, so I'll do it. Or it's something personally of interest to you. And again, we typically have people all across the board in this realm as well. All right, it looks like we're getting there. Okay. Um, so it's looking like, although it's, people across the board here, a lot of people are interested in this for career, like changing careers or increasing earning potential. And I do believe that in that sense, like having a master's in many areas of business or companies or industry, like HR takes that into consideration when it talks about salary levels if you're looking for something new. And again, having that credential, if you're going to get into data and tech and data analysis, having that credential makes you more marketable, and it might be a necessary condition in many settings. So this is great. I think you're mapping to this nicely already based on your answers. Okay, so I said it's a real master's at Pitt, and it is. It's credit bearing. You have to take 10 classes. Let me give you a little bit more about that. There are 10 classes to this degree. Each one is 3 credits for a total of 30 credits. That's pretty standard for a master's. You've got your entering class, which I've mentioned is the PBA, or it's data-centric computing is the name of it. And then you'll have a capstone at the end where you put everything together. So that's like 2 of the 10 classes, and the rest are sort of the meat and potatoes of the study of this area of data science. Again, you have no STEM background that's required. You don't have to have an undergraduate STEM degree. How long does it take to complete? Well, it depends. This program is designed to be part-time. Okay, so if you do part-time, it's typically 20 to 36 months to complete. So, under 3 years, 3 years or less, it's designed to complete. And it's optimized for 1 to 2 classes per term. In other words, we're hoping and expecting that you would take 1 class at a time or 2 classes at a time. But we have it year round, so it's not like you have to pause. And many of our classes are offered every term. Not all of them, but many of them are. So it's typically pretty easy to continue to roll through every term, fall, spring, and summer, until you graduate. But you can also take a break if you need to. If you have a particularly busy, like personal or professional life, you need to take a semester off. That's also a problem. That's or not a problem. It's not going to mess anything up for you as far as that goes. And our PBA course is the pathway course. It's called a performance-based admissions class. It's a real class. It's the first of the 10 classes that you need to graduate. But rather than having you fill out an application, you literally sign up for this class. And as long as you have a B or better, and we can verify that you have an undergrad degree, a 4-year bachelor's degree, that is your admission into the major. So oddly enough, if you're admitted to the major because you've gotten the B or better in that first class, you're already 1/10 of the way there, right? You have 9 classes left. So the admissions process is actually making your first step in the degree itself. So that part is actually kind of unique. And I also want to jump on for a second, the no STEM background required. I think one of the things that this class will be important for is let me break this into the 2 populations that I've seen here. Like some say you have a STEM background, and some say you don't, but you're interested in it. For those who have a STEM background, I think this class is a good introduction to the space of what you will learn here. So you can get a sense of, is this an added value to what I already know from statistics or biology or computer science or whatever your background is. It's a good way for you to know, is this stuff that is valuable and new to me? For the non-STEM folks, it's really more of a test of, can you handle it? So I need to be clear about this. Even though you don't have to have a STEM degree, for those who don't have a STEM background, it's a pretty steep learning curve for this first class. You're going to be digesting a lot of material and it will take a lot of time. But don't be daunted, because from what we've seen so far of people who have started to move through this degree, there's a lot of intense learning that takes place in this first class. And then the rest of the classes, for the most part, aren't quite as intense in terms of the reading or the heaviness of the material, only because some of it would then already be familiar to you. So again, because for those of you in non-STEM, taking this up front, it's going to be a lot of extra sort of time just to get this the first time around. But we don't expect you to know anything. We don't assume you know anything. So we'll teach it to you from scratch. It just might take you longer, is all. And that's what makes this unique and kind of exciting, is it's relevant to both populations, STEM and non-STEM. But this first class really is important, not only from an admissions perspective and making that first step to progress and getting in, but also for giving you a flavor of, like, what's the level that you're going to work at, and can you handle this pace? Do you like what you're learning? Is it valuable to you? And also, it should evidence to you that this is a real master's degree. It's a serious master's degree where you're learning actual knowledge and actual skills. So again, all you have to do to get in is complete that first class and pass it with a B or better. And we try to, again, not that the study will be easy. It's going to take a lot of your time and it should be interesting and engaging. But any barriers to you just focusing on studying, we want to remove. We want all of your energy devoted to learning and as little energy as possible devoted to everything else. So you don't have to, like, fill out an application. You take the class. Even like your degree, to prove that you have an undergrad degree, if we can help it, rather than having you contact your university and send a whole thing in and get a verified transcript, we have an automated way for those who graduated from degrees in the US to get your transcript pulled and evaluated from a clearinghouse. So again, in most cases, just by virtue of you signing up for the first class and taking it, while you're taking that first class, we'll run like a thing behind the scenes to pull your transcript and verify that you've got your degree. And then we'll notify you once it's done. We'll be like, yep, we verified it. You have an undergrad degree. You're good to go. Just get a B or better in the class and you're in. Now, where it gets a little bit more complicated is if you studied outside of the US, if you're an international student, you might have to send in an evaluation by what's called a NACES approved evaluation service. And that costs a bit of money. And that is the way for us to say, whatever your prior degree is it equivalent to, at least equivalent to, a 4-year undergrad bachelor's degree accredited in the US? And if it is, you're fine. But that one, for international students, you'll have to take that step of having it evaluated. And I would shop around. If you go to the NACES, it literally just go NACES evaluations, and you'll find a whole listing of organizations that you can pay to have that evaluation done. But some of them are faster than others. I can't recommend one or the other, but I would definitely shop around for one that gives you an electronic evaluation rather than one that's paper, because that would be quicker for you. So, and then also, if you're an international student for a non-English speaking country, you'll have to prove your English language proficiency through a standardized test like TOEFL or IELTS or Duolingo. But for the most part, there are minimum barriers for entry, no actual application. You have to take the class and get a B in it, and you're good to go. And then just proving that you have that undergrad background and, if necessary, the English proficiency, and you're good to go. And that's literally what gets you admission into the program. So, okay, what about, all right, so I said, all right, 20 to 36 months, right? So up to 3 years, taking hopefully 1 to 2 classes at a time. If you want to, it's more tricky, you might take 3. But, 1 to 2 classes is where it's at. What's that going to look like? What's your schedule going to flow like? Well, I would call it like bookends. Typically what happens is you would take the first class, the performance-based admissions class, data-centric computing. So you can only take 1 class at a time for the first one, because that's your ticket to admission. But once you're in, then you take basically 8 more classes. There's some core classes and some electives. And then at the end, your last semester would be a capstone, which is a chance to work on a project and synthesize all of the learning from the prior terms. So the first and last semesters are like 3 credit bookends, and then you choose how you want to parse the 8 classes in between those two. All right. And then here's what that looks like. So I already talked about the data-centric computing PBA class and then the capstone. But what are some of the other things? So we have core classes. So the data-centric computing, which is the admissions, is actually the first of the core classes. And then you have several more. You've got mathematical and statistical foundations for data science. So understanding like statistics and statistical analyses enough to make sense of data, managing, querying, and preserving data, the basics of data and how you pull data, how you structure it, how you save it, what you throw out, what you keep, applied predictive modeling. So, okay, let's say you've got data and you want to use your knowledge of the data and the data you have as statistics to make sense of it and to predict what's going to happen in the future. After all, that's often why you would be hired by a company that wants to make sense of the data that it has and predict, buyer behavior, spending behavior, performance, outcomes, all that stuff. So you're going to learn about predictive modeling. Also, if you're going to be like presenting things to your bosses or clients or whoever, how do you take massive amounts of complex data and make it make sense to outsiders? That would be data visualization. I mean, many of you might be familiar with this if you've used Excel. Like basic data visualization would be like a bar chart or a pie graph, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. And then responsible data science. It's like, sort of, what is it? The Spider-Man mantra, with great power comes great responsibility. Like you're going to know how to do a lot of things with data. You're going to know how to persuade with data. And how do you look at that responsibly? How do you make sense of data ethically and responsibly? Then for the electives, you pick 3 out of 4. So it's still pretty structured for you, but there's 4 classes to choose from. So if you're really into the statistical and data analysis end of it, you could take the applied Bayesian data analysis. Deep learning deals more with like how you would structure, I think, some of the artificial intelligence ends of figuring out how to make sense of data. Cloud computing, using things, storing things in the cloud, accessing, securing data in the cloud, all that stuff. And then text is data. So how do you make sense of text rather than numbers? Like how do you analyze large paragraphs of data, for example? And so one term I've heard some of our faculty talk about is like sentiment analysis. Can you take paragraphs and figure out if people are upset, happy, angry? Like what do they think of that? So these are the kinds of things you would take. And then again, the capstone would be basically your chance to synthesize what you've done by applying all of the knowledge from the other classes, from the other 9 classes, into case studies. All right. Now, a couple other things. How much does it cost? It's kind of important. This is actually one of the most, I think, impressive things about this. Again, a lot of, as you may know, higher education is not necessarily cheap, but this is a fixed price where the full tuition for the whole program is $15,000, which basically boils down to $500 per credit or $1,500 per class. And we believe that that's well within the bounds of what most companies' educational benefits would cover. And furthermore, the university has payment plans. So if you are financing this out of pocket, typically you can break the tuition payments into payments of 3 or 6 or something like that. So you don't have to pay it all at once. And if you're a domestic student who can fill out a FAFSA and are eligible for federal aid or student loans, this degree would make you eligible for that, with the caveat that typically federal aid is only applicable for people who are half-time or greater, which means basically the only time financial aid would be eligible for domestic students would be when you're taking 2 classes or more. So 6 credits or more would be necessary for you to be qualified for any financial aid in a given term. Okay. All right, so we said this is a real master's. It's got real intensity, all that kind of difficulty of a regular master's program. A challenge, a credential. It is a absolute credential of Pitt. It's a credentialed master's. But what about, it's online. It's different. There's no lecture, right? I mean, there's content, there's videos, there's stuff you're going to digest and whatever. But what does that mean? That's one of the things that's actually a little different intentionally. I would argue in some ways maybe even better than a traditional classroom setting, where in a traditional classroom you show up and you listen to a lecture, you take your notes and you go, and then maybe you ask some questions in the class. In this case, since everything is built and structured by our seasoned faculty, What the engagement is, it's the same resources, you're just using them differently. So faculty will have office hours every week, and then they have teaching assistants, basically, that we call course facilitators, and they often also have office hours. And so the idea is that you would take the lecture. It's almost like sitting in a lecture. It's just not a live lecture. But then what you do is you have every week a chance to interact with the faculty and the TAs to ask questions and further clarify your understanding of the content. So you have that face time with the faculty, with the instructors. You have teaching assistants and academic support. You have advisors. So Maria and I can help you out with any advising needs. You have other student services, things like career resources. We've got resume reviews online if you need it, mock interviews. We have Pitt centralized career services you can interact with online. All of that kind of stuff is available to you outside of the classroom to supplement and complement what you're going to get inside the classroom. Okay, so you're like, well, so far, again, I'm interested. What do I need to do? What's my action item? What's my next step? Well, it's literally sign up to take the PBA class, the data-centric computing. There's literally no application to do that. You fill out a form that takes you like 5 minutes, and that is your registration for the class. And then you have to pay for it, obviously, before it starts, but that's what you do. You sign up for the class, do your best, do your work, take the class, and then if you get a B or better, you're pretty much there as long as we can verify that you have your undergrad degree, which we'll do automatically unless you're international, in which case you have to have an evaluation done by a NACIS credited evaluator. And then if you're from a non-English speaking country where English is not an official language, you'd have to prove your proficiency by showing a score of either 80 on the TOEFL, 80 or higher, 6.5 on IELTS, 6.5 or higher, or 110 or higher on Duolingo. We accept any of the three. And again, not recommending one over the other, but you can look at availability and cost of each of those tests if you need them to see which one fits best for you. Okay, so you're like, all right, I want to sign up for the class. What do I do? Well, there's a link. If you go to Coursera and look us up, or you look at sci.pitt.edu and look up the Master of Data Science, you'll be able to go in. And basically on Coursera's link for us, you'll see us and there's a link that says enroll now. And then you just fill out the 5-minute form and you've signed up and you'll be enrolled to take the class this summer. Or if you go to our website, sci.pitt.edu, and find our data science degree, in the lower right-hand pane, you click apply and then select master's degree, Master of Data Science, and then enroll. And again, fill out the 5-minute form and you're done. And basically what happens is this is not high pressure. I mean, you have plenty of time to think about this. The next available window of entry is this summer. Okay, so you have lots of time to think about this, but in order to qualify or get ready, like we do have a hard deadline. So you have to make the decision and submit the form by no later than May 6th at 11:59 p.m. So that's your ultimate deadline. That's months from now. You have lots of time to look into this. And then classes start on May 7th, the next day. And then once classes start, while you're studying, reading, and learning, we'll be verifying your undergrad degree. And then so it really is like what you would be doing in the summer is what we call the PBA pathway. It's the performance-based admissions class. It is your application process. Learning the basics and completing the first of the 10 courses in the master's program is your admissions process. It starts in summer. I said that's basically May 7th is when it starts. That's our summer term. Our summer term is 14 weeks long. So again, I said it's flexible and asynchronous, but please know that within those 14 weeks, you will have to do regular work. You'll have to pace yourselves. Typically, this means doing work every week. If you do have a busy schedule or travel or vacation or something, you might need to work ahead to be able to like then have a break. But basically, the expectation would be on your schedule, you're still doing stuff every week, basically. So whether that means only on the weekends or in the evenings or whatever, that's fine. And it doesn't even matter what time. That's the asynchronous flexible part. There's still structure. And I would contend that that's the best of both worlds, right? It's kind of meant to accommodate balance and busy schedules in your lives. But at the same time, if you're just, oh, finish it whenever, That's not very motivating either. So even though it's flexible, you still are paced. It's like, I have this deadline for this assignment. I have this deadline for the midterm. I have this deadline. So that part of it will keep you externally motivated, right? But again, every week, if you have problems or questions, you talk to the instructor. You have live, real-time office hours with the instructor. And if the class is more complicated, sometimes the TAs will do the same thing. So in that sense, that's what you do. You literally fill out this 5-minute form, start the class, go through it in 14 weeks. You get your B, and we verify your degree, and you're literally a master's student in our school in a real accredited Master of Data Science at the University of Pittsburgh. So again, a couple of summary takeaways. Unlike most master's programs where you need letters of recommendation, you might have to have prerequisites, or we need to get like standardized SAT or GRE scores. None of that. You just take 5 minutes, sign up for the class, pay for the class, spend a great deal of time learning the information in the class. That's the hard part. And then if possible, we'll automatically verify your undergrad degree, or if international, you'll have to send in an evaluation. And then if you're international from a non-English speaking country, you'll have to verify your English proficiency. Also, payment. The tuition price is $15,000. Also, I should mention there's like an administrative fee each term that you're registered outside of tuition. I think right now it's about $175 a term. So if you want to do that, let's say, it takes you 7 terms, you do 175 times 7 plus the 15,000, and that's your total cost in on that. Also, truth in advertising, some of our classes might have a textbook, like 1 or 2 textbooks, but rather than having you pay full price, we have this thing called Red Shelf, where we can give you electronic access for a discounted rate to a textbook as well. So for example, one of the classes right now that has that is the Managing Query and Preserving Data. And I think the cost is like $60 or $80 for the textbook through Red Shelf. It's something like that. So those are again, the costs are minimal and much reduced compared to most higher education offerings. And the full tuition price of $15,000 is very significantly reduced. Honestly, that's less than 1 full-time semester of out-of-state tuition for an on-campus program, the entire degree. So in that sense, that's I'd say a pretty good deal. That's one of the things we wanted to do a takeaway for you. Federal aid is available for U.S. citizens if you're taking 2 or more classes in a given term through FAFSA and federal aid and student loans. And then employment benefits are available. All we mean by that is if your employer supports and has an employment benefit program, you're welcome to participate. We have a mechanism by which we can accept third-party payments. I think that's the key logistical thing for anybody who has an employment benefit. Like, we're used to working with employers. We have mechanisms that are acceptable in most employers where they can pay for your tuition for you. And again, we'll direct you to that detail once you get to that stage in this process. And again, you have outside of the classroom resources, just like an on-campus student would: live faculty office hours, teaching assistance and academic support, career services, advising, all that good stuff. And so, all right, now I think we're getting, with the remaining time, into the question phase. So I think there's a Q&A thing. Let me see if I can open that up. And what I'll do is, I think my colleagues that have been on with this the whole time, let me stop the share for a minute. Actually, let me keep the share for a moment, because outside of today, if you do have questions after today, okay, so I'll answer as many as I can now, but there might be some that come up later you want to follow up. There is an enrollment counselor for this program, India Vieira. Here's the QR code where you can book a meeting with India. And if you have questions about the application itself or financial aid, you can contact online-mds-support@pitt.edu. So you got both of those. So I'll leave that up for now while I'm answering the questions. And I'm going to answer them in the order in which they're sent. And I know that my colleagues are answering some of these behind the scenes as well, but there are some that I should answer publicly. So I will do my best to do that, starting with the first one that came in. All right, many of the data scientists at my current company are deployed on projects involving LLMs. How are you integrating emerging AI technologies into the curriculum? I don't know that I can answer that specifically, other than I know that some of the faculty have talked about that already. I think that's one of the things where if you want, you can pitch that to the enrollment counselor and we can bring that to some of the faculty, have them answer that question, and we can get that to you through email. I don't want to misspeak on that one. That's pretty deep in terms of how we're doing the artificial intelligence into the curriculum. But I do think that we are. I just don't know that I'm informed enough. I'm not an instructor, so I don't want to try to answer that in that way. Now, the next question is, do the transcripts mention online, or are they also the same ones given to all students who study in person as well? Oh, yeah, good question. Yeah, so when I say a real PIT degree, it's a diploma. It's a master's diploma. The transcript is a master's transcript. There's no distinction. It's not like a carved out as a separate administrative entity. So there is no distinction. It's literally Master of Data Science from the University of Pittsburgh. So yeah, there is no special thing. It's not lesser. It's not greater. It is one of the master's degrees from Pitt as an accredited institution. Oh, yeah, good question. So the next one is, do students get to attend graduation in person? That one I can answer directly because I coordinate the graduations for the School of Computing Information. So the answer is yes, but what I can't tell you right now is exactly how many choices you have. So here's what I know will be, but there might be something else depending on what happens. So let me tell you what I know will be. In the fall and in the spring, we host graduation ceremonies for our school. And depending on when you graduate, we would invite you to one or the other of those programs. We live stream it, so if you can't make it in person, you can attend the graduation remotely. But if you can get to Pittsburgh, you'd be welcome to be part of that ceremony in person and come in and walk up on stage and receive, like the photo op and shaking the dean's hand and all that. What I don't know yet is, will we need to or want to set up a separate graduation just for the MDS students? So right now, you'll definitely be invited to the school ceremony, either remote or in person if you want to, but we might also consider like some kind of a ceremony for MDS. We haven't decided on that one yet. And also, if I understand correctly, depending on when you graduate, you might be invited to university's commencement. They have a fall commencement for grad students, not a spring one. So yeah, so there are actually several graduation options. All right, next one. Once admitted to the master's program, is it required to maintain a GPA of 3.0 to graduate? My concern is whether it might be challenging for people without a STEM background. No, so yeah, typically a 3.0 is what's required to graduate. But again, so that's B or better. I do believe you can get lower than that in an individual class, but overall your GPA would need to be a 3.0 or better. But again, I understand your concern. So far, we've had students with non-STEM backgrounds and they've done just fine in the classes after the PBA. Like, I don't think there have been that many issues as far as that goes. I think the real issue for somebody without a STEM background is that initial learning curve, not the rest of the program. It's the initial learning curve. The closest parallel I can give you to that exemplifies what I'm talking about. I used to be an advisor of undecided and exploratory students at another large university before I moved to this position. And I advised students on med school. And it was very true that students without a STEM degree could still get into med school if, for example, they were an English major or a psych major and they had a year of calc, a year of bio, a year of inorganic chemistry, and then physics, and they could get in. But people who just had that basic background when they got to med school had many, many, many more hours of work to get to the learning curve of where they needed to be to survive med school versus somebody who was a bio major who got into med school. They had an easier time of it only because a lot of the stuff was familiar and they weren't learning it from scratch. So I think that's the greatest challenge to our non-STEM enrollees in this program, is just spending the extra time catching up and learning. But what's brilliant about this program is it teaches you from scratch. There's not a lot of programs that do it that way. For somebody who doesn't have an undergrad degree to jump right into a master's in a tech area without the background, we teach you all that tech background. It's kind of a crash course and it's very detailed, but you have to put in the time. So I would almost conceptualize it this way, like if you're working full time and or you have a family, you're going to have to carve out a lot of time for this first class, perhaps more than a lot of the other classes in the program, because of that learning curve. But it's that the GPA part of it isn't, I don't think, the problem. I think it's more just making sure that you have the amount of time necessary to learn that from scratch. And if you do, I mean, it's really exciting. It's kind of like learning a new language. It's like you can do that. It's just, it takes some commitment. Right. Is there an opportunity to retake the PBA class at any juncture? Yeah, in fact, we've had a subset, I'd say, of about 30 students who have done that. They might not have gotten the B and they wanted to do it again, so they could. Do students need to take TOEFL or IELTS? Only if they are from they're non-US citizen from a non-English speaking country. In other words, a country that does not have English as a native language. They would have to take the TOEFL or IELTS or Duolingo test and get the score that I mentioned in the PowerPoint earlier. Okay. Oh, sorry, these are scrolling. I just need to look. Oh, what programming languages are covered? The main one for this, and again, this one I am comfortable talking about, even though I'm not faculty, because I've talked with faculty about it. Python is a language that lends itself to data extraction. So Python is of central importance in this program. Is the program DASCA accredited? I have not heard that it is. That is not something that I'm familiar with. However, you want to email us about that, we can look into that for you, but that is not something that I'm aware of. And I don't know that there is an accrediting body for what we offer at this time. But if that's of concern for you, again, email us, email India, and then she can pop that up the line and we can check with the faculty and the people who built the program to see if there is an accreditation that I'm just not aware of. But I think the answer to that is no. But I don't think that it is an important distinction at this point, from what I understand. Oh, this is a great question. Can we do degree verification in ELP before May 7th? As in as soon as possible? Absolutely. Like, yeah, if you're an international student and you want to get your evaluation of your prior degree, I would say it this way, though, don't pay more than you have to. You don't need a course by course evaluation. Once you find an accredited evaluator on the NACE's accredited list, just do a degree level verification. We just need to verify that it's equivalent to a 4-year bachelor's degree. And yeah, do that as soon as you want to, and take the TOEFL, IELTS, or Duolingo as soon as you want to. Will we be paired with a faculty advisor? Actually, no, but you can talk with each of the instructors in each of your classes. And then you also have Maria and myself who you can talk to if you have some logistical issues or you need help navigating your options. Okay. Now, next question. I have lived in the US for 10 plus years and I have 20 plus years of experience. My graduate degree is in computer science, but outside the US. Do I need to provide IELTS or similar scores? Oh, unfortunately, this might be an accreditation thing. Yeah, most likely you will, but we can review your case. Where if your undergrad degree is in the US or an English speaking country, that would do also. But yeah, most likely only because if we're audited by the accreditors, we have to prove verification of English level. So it may be that you're still going to need to take the IELTS or Duolingo or TOEFL. Oh, how many students are currently enrolled in this program? Oh, oh gosh, as of last count, between the first class and being admitted into MDS, if I sum total, it's over 500, if I remember correctly. And it's growing every day. It seems to be even more popular. Like every term, it seems like we've been enrolling about we're only a couple cohorts in, and we've been enrolling about 200 students per term. And some have decided not to continue. Some are taking time off, but the upshot's probably about somewhere between 500 and 600 that we have currently in the system. All right. What exactly are payments due for the summer? Your previous answer linking to a payment page does not adequately answer this question. Okay. I don't know if they've posted that yet, but it typically is due sometime during the summer, early in the summer. So if you're signed up, they're not going to make it due immediately, but I think it would be most likely in May unless you set up a payment plan. But at some point, the payments.pitt.edu will have that schedule posted. In fact, it might actually, I'm not sure if it's there at this second, but they should post that soon if they haven't already. What resources are needed for this class in addition to a computer and books? Okay, it looks like somebody's typing an answer, but I think that what will happen is you'll need to be able to download Python and do a couple things like that. But from what I recollect, there's no specific textbook for that first class for data-centric computing. Basically, the computer, internet access, that's the main thing, and the time to study the content. Oh, next question. Do residents of Pittsburgh receive the same services as on-campus students? That is a great question. Not exactly. So let me give you where that breaks down. So you'd have the same library access and the same access to remote and technology services that an on-campus student would have, but on-campus students pay an additional fee each term for bus passes and for access to like gyms and facility equipment on campus. And since you're not charged those fees, you're not going to have access to the bus system or the on-campus things like the gym and whatnot. Okay, I'm currently taking, oh, where did that go? I'm currently taking the online Coursera Google Data Analytics for the certificate. Do you believe this will assist with the curriculum? I would say it this way. There's not to the extent that it's not going to advance your credit load, like it's not going to count in place of a course. But again, if you don't have a STEM background, you're actually getting at something that we typically do when somebody signs up for the data-centric computing course. What we typically do is after, as we get closer to the start of classes, we'll say, hey, Coursera has some stuff that can help you learn about statistics or programming or data analysis. We encourage you to take some of those free, not for credit classes to get your mind working in that direction and brush up on some of those skills. So I think that familiarity and that awareness will help you, but it's not a directly translatable thing that would apply towards the credit count for your degree. I have a B- in manufacturing engineering from McMaster Canada. I passed in last December, but I don't have an official transcript. Can I start in the spring? Well, you'd have to start in the summer. So the answer is basically you're not going to, you can start the performance-based admissions class and complete it with a B or better, but you would not be admissible into the program until we have formal documentation that you've completed your prior degree and that it's equivalent to a 4-year bachelor's degree in the US. So that is a non-negotiable thing that must be proven before you're allowed to be admitted into the MDS. What about an English waiver for international students? If I've studied English curriculum, oh, yeah. So the question is about a waiver for international students of the English proficiency. If you are from, let me say this carefully, if you are from a non-English speaking country, but you have an undergrad degree or a master's from a country that has English as an official language, then that should allow a waiver. What jobs will students get after the program? I'll say it this way. Our first graduating cohort will be in fall of 2025, and then we'll see where they go to work. But the whole point of this was actually driven by industry. This was built by people in industry to basically meet industry needs for people who are data analysts, consultants, anybody who needs to have a role in business or nonprofits or higher education where you need to have a data background and be a data architect or a data analyst or anything along those lines. Can you start with a graduate certificate? Oh, yes, great question. So you've hit on something that we have something called the Applied Data-Driven Methods Certificate. And often people discover this who are in another master's program at Pitt and they'll take the certificate, or they're like local in the area and they take the online, it's called the ADDM certificate. It's the one certificate at Pitt where it's 4 classes, this certificate, and all 4 of them are direct classes that are required of the MDS. So yeah, we have a small subset of students who come in with the ADDM and they've already met the admission requirement. and they have 4 classes completed out of the 10 that they need. They only have 6 left. So yes, you can start with the ADDM, and it jumpstarts your progress in MDS. Could you provide information on the number or percentage of applicants who successfully meet admission requirements for the program each year? Oh, there's no admission. You literally take the class. So the success rate in the class, I'd say, is, if I remember correctly off the top of my head, it's like 80% or higher, I think, something along those lines. But that's it. I mean, and anybody, like, there's a handful of people that can't provide proof of their undergrad degree. They also couldn't move forward until they do that. But for the most part, the majority of students who take that performance-based admissions class make it through and are able to be admitted and move forward. Oh, if we will be out of town for the first 2 weeks of the PBA, can we make up the course contents in the following weeks? I believe that has happened before. What I would recommend, though, is typically what happens is the class, you might have access to the class a few days before the term specifically starts, and you might just get a head start, do a couple things, then take some time off and come up and catch up. Then what you'd have to do is you really have to talk to the instructor to ask for extensions, but under special circumstances, the instructor has allowed that to happen. Can you transfer in courses into the MDS? No, that's the one thing. Given the price point and the specificity of the learning, the closest thing we have to transfer is if you did the ADDM, which is literally the same classes, then we can go in. But typically, transfers are not accepted. And especially after you start, you have to take these specific classes. All right, what do we have next? Which course platforms are used in cloud computing, AWS, Azure? I honestly don't know yet. That course is still under development, so I don't even know that I can give you an answer to that until that class is built. Will students be prepared to be certified in any of these cloud platforms? I don't know that the intent of that is to lead to that level of certification. So I don't think that's the case. But again, what we can do is, if you want to email us, and again, like, pitch that question to India, she can forward it to us. We'll get it to the faculty who are developing that class, and we can see what their intent is behind it. But I don't know that I can answer that yet at this point. And I just want to caution you that since the class is still being built, I don't know that I can answer that question for you at this time. If we are not currently working professionals, can we take courses on a full-time basis? Oh, yeah, technically you are allowed. You are allowed to take full-time basis. So you could take 3. I think the maximum, I wouldn't recommend, in an online program like this, I wouldn't recommend the full amount, but technically as a graduate student, you max out at 15 credits, which would be 5 classes. So yeah, if you start in the summer, take the PBA class, then in that following fall, you could take 3, I'd say 3 or 4 classes would be reasonable. Yes, that is possible. Do we maintain Coursera membership while enrolled in courses through the University of Pitt? Yes. Yes, you do. You have Coursera membership. And in fact, you have to make sure that you're connected, that your Coursera account is tied to your Pitt email ID that you'll get. Is there an application fee for PBA? Oh, no. So that's the thing. I mean, you have to pay the tuition for the class. The class is not free. It's $1,500. But again, it counts directly towards the master's. So you literally just sign up for the class and take it and pay the tuition, but there are no other fees other than that, and then the administrative fee for the term, which is, I think, about $175. But it's not, there are no application fees in this at all. If I take a break in the middle of the semester, will I get any refund for the credits that I took during that semester? I'm not sure if I understand that. If you start a class, you have to finish it. But if you, like, let's say if you're in a class and then you need to take the next semester off, you're not charged any fee. And then you're only charged tuition fee and the administrative fee in a semester in which you're enrolled. But if you do start a term, there's what's usually a limited window of the first 2 weeks of the term where you can drop a class without penalty. But once you're committed, you have to see that class through. If you need to drop for the case of an emergency, like 8 weeks into the term or something, it's still possible. Then you might get a refund, but it would be prorated. And at a certain point, if you have to drop very late in the term, you'd still have to pay the tuition because you've utilized the university's resources for the entire term. So no, you don't really get a refund. It's just you can take a break in the middle of the program, just not in the middle of a semester in which you're enrolled. Okay. If you're a data analyst already, does this degree still teach new skills and help in other ways? I'd like to think so, but again, don't take my word for it. I think that's what that PBA class is all about. And I'd say if you want that class, I think most of it will drop right away. Like if you sign up for it when it's open, you'll be able to see the whole thing. You can look at the course content, browse it during the first 2 weeks of the summer term, and see if it's stuff you're like, oh, this is review, or oh, this is new. And you can maybe make your decision as you review the content of the class. And there's also open content. That's another thing. If you're on the Coursera site, you can look at is there will be a means for you to watch some of the videos, not take any of the assignments, but just like watch some of the videos and learn some of the content in the course, almost like a free preview to help you answer that question. Because I don't think there's a set yes or no. I think it very much depends on the person and their background and what they've learned already and where they are. So I'd say I would use that first course either through open content, like signing up for a free preview or taking the first 2 weeks of the actual term to take it out for a spin and see if there's new things that you're learning in the class before you decide whether or not to continue. How do we verify previously obtained degree? No. See, if you get your degree from a school from an accredited school in the U.S., there's a clearinghouse where we automatically do it because again, so what happens is if you sign up to take the data-centric computing class, one of the questions that we ask in that 5-minute form that you need to fill out to sign up, in addition to your name and identifying information, we ask, what degree did you get and from where did you get it? Based on that answer, we can plug this into a clearinghouse and verify your degree. So you don't have to do anything as long as that process works, which mostly it does. Wow, and with 4 minutes to spare, there are no open questions. Thanks to the team that answered a lot while I was talking live. I think we've got everything here. One more thing, if you want to connect with us otherwise, here's the, if you want to take a quick photo of this, this is the Coursera entry into MDS, the SCI entry into MDS, and then for the University of Pittsburgh, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, all the greatest hits. All right, let's see. Anything else? Double checking on questions. Did another question come up? Looks like maybe. Oh, thanks. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for taking this time and spending this with all of us. Greatly appreciate it. I hope that I've given you a lot to think about. I hope you're excited about this program. It really is fairly unique, and I do think that it's chock full of content for somebody who really wants to get a real master's and change their lives and learn about a new area that's very lucrative. I think this is a great option. So I hope you'll give it serious consideration. I wish you the best of luck in your exploration, and I hope you have a great afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you online in the future. Take care, everyone. Oh, we stopped the recording too.